My name is Chloe, and the story I'm about to tell you is a secret I've carried like a shard of glass in my heart, beautiful, dangerous, and capable of cutting deeper than I ever imagined. It's a story about the quiet chaos of a longing you never see coming, the scent of salt air and betrayal, and a single, forbidden moment in a sun-drenched kitchen that threatened to unravel my entire world. This isn't a justification. It's a confession. A map of how I wandered to the very edge of a line I swore I'd never cross. And the devastating, necessary choice I had to make to find my way back. It began on a Friday. One of those perfect California mornings where the sky is a relentless, cloudless blue. My husband, Mark, had kissed me goodbye at dawn, his suitcase rolling behind him toward another weekend business trip, this time to Seattle. We lived in a modest, airy cottage in Santa Monica, its large windows perpetually open to the symphony of crashing waves and the tang of the ocean. Mark was a good man, a devoted partner, a successful financial consultant. I loved him, but his frequent absences had begun to paint our home in subtle shades of silence. The space he left behind wasn't just empty. It echoed a constant, gentle reminder of a companionship put perpetually on pause, determined to shake off the creeping loneliness. I decided to dedicate the day to cleansing the house and perhaps my own restless spirit. I pulled my honey blonde hair into a messy bun, slipped into a worn, soft white t-shirt and denim cutoffs, and turned on a mellow jazz playlist. The sound of a gentle trumpet filled the sunlit living room, mingling with the salty breeze. I started dusting the high bookshelves where Mark kept his collection of vintage vinyl and sailing trophies. The sun warmed my skin, and for a moment, the rhythm of the music and the waves almost lulled me into a sense of peaceful solitude. That's when I felt it, a shift in the atmosphere, a presence. The hair on the back of my neck stood up. I turned, and there he was. Liam, Mark's son from his first marriage, home for the summer after his sophomore year at college. He was leaning against the doorframe of his bedroom, his dark hair sleep-tousled, his blue eyes still heavy with dreams. At 21, he had shed the last of his boyish softness. His frame now all lean muscle and quiet confidence, a near mirror of his father at that age, yet distinctly his own person. Morning, Liam, I said, hoping my voice sounded light, casual. The cheerful stepmother. Morning, Chloe, he replied, his voice a low rumble of morning gravel. His gaze didn't just land on me. It lingered, tracing the line of my arm as I reached upward, holding the dusting rag. He pushed off the frame and padded into the living room, collapsing onto the large linen sofa with a sigh. He wore just a pair of gray sweatpants, his bare chest and feet a casual intimacy that suddenly felt charged. We fell into small talk. His upcoming internship applications, a coding project he was obsessed with, his thoughts on grad school. My words felt automatic, my attention split between the conversation and the palpable weight of his observation. As I stretched to adjust a crooked, framed photograph of a lighthouse on the very top shelf, the small, ornate stool I was standing on gave a treacherous wobble. My balance shifted, a gasp caught in my throat, and the world tilted. Chloe. In a flash, he was there. His arms shot around my waist, catching me firmly against him before my knees could even buckle. The stool clattered to the hardwood floor, a sharp sound swallowed by the sudden, absolute stillness. Time didn't just slow. It crystallized out. I was held aloft, suspended in the solid strength of his embrace. My back was against his bare chest, and I could feel the rapid, strong beat of his heart through the thin cotton of my shirt. His arms were secure, yet there was a hesitation in his grip, a gentleness that suggested he was afraid of holding too tight, of startling me. The scent of him, sleep, clean cotton, and a faint, spicy trace of his soap enveloped me. My own heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic bird. I managed a breathy, nervous laugh. Good catch. That could have been a trip to the AMA. I tried to sound flippant, but the words came out thin and shaky. Liam didn't release me. Not immediately. He slowly, carefully lowered me until my feet found the solid ground. But his hands remained on my waist, steadying me, or perhaps steadying himself. I turned within the circle of his arms to face him, and our eyes locked. We were so close I could see the faint flecks of silver in his blue irises, the dark fringe of his lashes. His expression was a storm of confusion, concern, and something else, a raw, undisguised intensity that stole the air from my lungs that my own breath hitched. The jazz music swelled, a sultry saxophone note hanging in the air between us. I should have stepped back. I should have made a joke, thanked him, and bustled away to the kitchen. But my body refused the command. I was frozen, captivated by the heat in his gaze, by the way his thumbs moved almost imperceptibly against the fabric over my hip bones, that the silence was deafening, thick with everything unsaid. The space between our bodies hummed with a magnetic pull I had never felt before. Not even in the early, passionate days with Mark. This was different. It was illicit, electric, and terrifyingly sweet. Finally, I found a whisper of voice. I should get back to it. His hands fell away, but the ghost of their touch remained, branded on my skin. He took a half step back, running a hand through his hair. Right, sorry. Don't be sorry, I said too quickly. You saved me. Another heavy silence descended, but the awkwardness had morphed into something else, a shared, breathless awareness. I walked on unsteady legs to the sofa and sat down, needing to feel something solid beneath me. After a moment's hesitation, Liam sat beside me, leaving a careful, charged foot of space between us. The morning sun streamed through the window, painting golden stripes across the floor. The waves crashed in their eternal rhythm. I glanced at him, studying his profile, the strong jaw, the focused frown. He was staring straight ahead, his knuckles white where he gripped his own knees. I've always loved this time of day here, I said softly, just to break the spell. So quiet. The whole day feels full of possibility. Liam turned his head, his eyes finding mine. The intensity had softened into something more contemplative, more vulnerable. Me too, he said, his voice low. Especially when it's shared. He paused, as if weighing his next words. Sometimes, Chloe, it feels like you're the only one in this house who really sees me, not as Mark's kid, not as a student, just as me. His words struck a chord so deep it vibrated in my soul. It was a feeling I knew intimately, the loneliness of being perceived only in relation to someone else, the stepmother, the supportive wife. In that moment, a bridge of understanding stretched between us, fragile and dangerous. Without conscious thought, as if pulled by an invisible string, I reached out and placed my hand lightly on his forearm. The contact was electric. A jolt shot up my arm. Under my fingers, his skin was warm, the muscle tense. He looked down at my hand, then back up at my face. His eyes darkened, swimming with a conflict that mirrored my own. Then, slowly, he turned his arm and intertwined his fingers with mine. His hand was larger, his grip firm yet questioning. Liam? I whispered, a warning and an invitation all at once. He didn't speak. He just leaned in, his movement slow, giving me every chance to pull away, to stop this before it started. My mind screamed a dozen reasons why this was catastrophic, unforgivable. But my heart, my lonely, yearning heart, had gone utterly silent. It had stopped beating for anyone but him in that suspended moment. I didn't pull away. When his lips met mine, the world didn't explode. It imploded, collapsing inward until nothing existed but the soft, tentative pressure of his mouth, the feel of his hand tightening around mine, the shocking sweetness of the kiss. It was gentle, exploratory, and laced with a profound ache. A shiver, one of pure visceral recognition, cascaded down my spine. This was wrong. It was a betrayal that stained the soul. But in the sun-drenched stillness of that living room, with the ocean as our only witness, wrong had never felt so devastatingly right. The kiss deepened, fueled by a surge of emotion we could no longer dam. His free hand came up to cradle my cheek, his thumb stroking my skin with a reverence that shattered me. I reached for him, my fingers sliding into his soft hair, pulling him closer. A low sound escaped him, a mix of desire and despair, and it ignited something primal within me. We broke apart, breathing ragged, foreheads resting together. His eyes were closed, his long lashes casting shadows on his cheeks. Chloe, he breathed, my name a prayer and a curse on his lips. I've thought about this. I've tried not to. I know, I whispered back, my voice trembling. Me too. It was the admission that sealed our fate. We weren't two people caught in a fleeting, accidental moment of passion. This was a slow burn that had been smoldering beneath the surface of our polite coexistence for months. Maybe years, and we had just willingly poured gasoline on it. He kissed me again, and this time there was no hesitation. It was hungry, passionate, a silent conversation of pent-up longing. My hands explored the planes of his shoulders, his back, committing his feel to a memory I knew would haunt me. His touch was both confident and achingly tender, as if I were something precious and fragile. We sank deeper into the couch cushions, a tangle of limbs and desperate kisses, the jazz album having long since ended, leaving only the sound of our ragged breaths and the distant, mocking crash of the waves. I.W. I was lost in a haze of sensation, every rational thought burned away by the heat of his skin. His lips traveled from my mouth to my jaw, down the column of my neck, and I arched against him, my fingers clutching at his back. The line wasn't just crossed. It was obliterated, left in smoldering ruins behind us. I don't know what to do, he murmured against my skin, his voice thick with emotion. I can't stop thinking about you. Every time you walk into a room, every time you laugh. His confession was a mirror of my own inner turmoil. I touched his face, forcing him to look at me. In his eyes, I saw my own desire reflected, mixed with a fear that told me he understood the gravity of this as well as I did. We were accomplices in this beautiful, terrible crime. And then the universe intervened, the distinct metallic scrape of a key in the front door lock. We froze mid-kiss, our bodies locking in a paralysis of pure, undiluted panic. The sound was a bucket of ice water, a shock that ripped us from our private universe and hurled us back into devastating reality. Honey, I'm home, Mark's cheerful voice called out, echoing in the hallway. Meeting wrapped up early. Surprise! My blood ran cold. Liam and I sprang apart as if scalded. He scrambled to the other end of the sofa, his face pale, his eyes wide with a terror that perfectly matched the frantic pounding of my heart. I stood up on legs of jelly, frantically smoothing my hair, my t-shirt, wiping a hand across my mouth as if I could erase the evidence. Mark walked into the living room, his face sun-kissed and smiling, dropping his suitcase by the door. He looked happy, relaxed, completely innocent of the seismic shift that had just occurred in his home, with his wife and his son. Chloe, there you are. He strode over and wrapped me in a hearty embrace, kissing my temple. He smelled of airplane air and his familiar cologne. Missed you? The traffic from Lax was a nightmare, but I couldn't wait to get back. He pulled back, his kind eyes searching my face. You okay? You look flushed. I'm great, I stammered, forcing a smile that felt like a crack in porcelain. Just surprised. What a wonderful surprise. I could feel Liam's gaze on me like a physical weight. Hey, champ, Mark said, noticing Liam. Didn't expect to see you up so early on a summer Friday. Liam had somehow composed his features into a mask of casual indifference, though a muscle in his jaw ticked. Hey, Dad. Yeah, couldn't sleep. Welcome back. Mark, blissfully unaware, regaled us with stories of his successful meetings, a funny anecdote about a lost taxi, the gorgeous weather in Seattle. I nodded and smiled, a perfect pantomime of wifely interest, while inside my soul was screaming. Every word Mark spoke was a nail in the coffin of my guilt. He was a good man. He trusted me. He loved us. I kept my eyes away from Liam, but the tension in the room was a living thing, thick and suffocating. It pulsed between us with every beat of my traitorous heart. I'll make some coffee, I finally said, desperate for an escape. You must be tired. In the kitchen, away from Mark's view, I gripped the cold granite countertop, my head bowed, trying to steady my breathing. What had I done? The warmth of Liam's lips, the feel of his hands, they were already morphing from a lived reality into a forbidden memory, one that filled me with equal parts shame and a desperate, aching want. I felt him before I saw him. Liam appeared in the kitchen doorway, silent as a ghost. He leaned against the frame, watching me, his expression unreadable. Chloe, he began, his voice low. We can't, I cut him off, the words a sharp whisper. Not a word. Not ever again. His face fell, the hope in his eyes dimming. It meant something, he insisted, just as quietly. You can't pretend it didn't. It was a mistake, I said, the lie tasting bitter on my tongue. A terrible, fleeting mistake. This family, your father, it's everything. I was pleading with him as much as with myself. Before he could respond, Mark's footsteps approached. You two plotting in here? He asked jovially, poking his head in. The normalcy of the question was a knife twist. The following days were a special kind of torture. The house, once a sanctuary, became a minefield of loaded glances and suffocating silence. With Mark present, Liam and I performed an elaborate, polite dance. We were overly formal, avoiding direct conversation, our eyes skittering away from each other like startled birds. But in the unguarded moments passing in the hallway, finding ourselves alone in the kitchen for a few seconds, the air would crackle with the unsaid. The memory of that kiss hung between us, a ghost we both could feel. One afternoon, Mark went to play golf with a client. The heavy quiet of the house pressed in on me. Needing air, I escaped to the small backyard garden, attacking the overgrown rosebush with a fervor I usually reserve for my spin class. The thorny branches snagged my shirt, my hands, a fitting punishment. I heard the sliding door open and close softly. I didn't need to turn around. He stood a few feet away, his hands in his pockets. The late sun gilded his hair. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The only sounds were the rustle of leaves, the distant waves, and the frantic beat of my own heart. You're avoiding me, he stated, his voice flat. We should be avoiding each other, I replied, my back still to him, my fingers trembling as I deadheaded a bloom. I can't, he said, the raw honesty in his voice breaking my resolve. Every time I close my eyes, I'm back on that couch. I can still taste you, Chloe. His words were a physical blow. I finally turned to face him. The torment in his beautiful blue eyes was a reflection of my own. Liam, this is destroying me. Every time Mark smiles at me, I feel like the worst kind of fraud. We have to stop. For his sake. For our sakes. What about what we feel? He challenged, taking a step closer. The scent of him, now mixed with sunshine and earth, washed over me, weakening my knees. Isn't that real? Doesn't it count for anything? It counts as a tragedy, I whispered, tears welling. A beautiful, impossible tragedy. You have your whole life ahead of you. A career, a future wife, a family of your own. This would ruin everything you're meant to be. And it would shatter your father. I won't be the cause of that. He looked at me for a long, aching moment, his shoulders slumping in defeat. He saw the resolve hardening through my tears. He gave a slow, painful nod. I hate this, he said, his voice thick. I know, I breathed. So do I. He turned and walked back into the house, and the piece of my soul that had inexplicably become his walked away with him. That night, after Mark had fallen asleep, I crept to the living room and sat in the dark, staring at the moonlit ocean. The choice before me was agonizingly clear: nurture the dangerous, exhilarating spark with Liam and watch our world burn, or smother it to save the family we both loved. The right choice was also the one that felt like a slow death. A week later, Providence, or perhaps cruel fate, offered an escape hatch. Liam received an email offering him a prestigious, highly competitive summer internship at a tech startup in Austin, Texas. It was an incredible opportunity, one he'd applied for on a whim months before. When he told Mark over dinner, my husband's face lit up with paternal pride. That's my boy, Mark boomed, clapping Liam on the back. Austin, that's fantastic news. We'll miss you like crazy, but you have to take this. I smiled, the expression carved from stone. Congratulations, Liam, I said, my voice thankfully steady. That's wonderful. Our eyes met across the table, and in that brief connection, I saw the same complex stew of emotions: pride, sorrow, relief, and a goodbye. The days before his departure were a blur of practicalities: laundry, packing, buying travel-sized toiletries. We were never alone, but the tension had shifted from electric to elegiac, a quiet morning for a road not taken. The morning he left, Mark loaded his suitcase into the Uber. Call us when you land, okay? Work hard, make connections, but have some fun too. He pulled Liam into a bear hug. Then it was my turn. I stepped forward. Take care of yourself, I said, my voice barely a whisper. I hugged him, a careful, brief, Steve motherly embrace. But as I went to pull away, his arms tightened for just a fraction of a second, and he buried his face in my hair, inhaling deeply. Goodbye, Chloe, he murmured, the words for my ears only, soaked in a finality that broke my heart clean in two. Then he was in the car, and it was pulling away from the curb. I stood with Mark, waving, until the car disappeared around the corner. Mark put his arm around my shoulders, pulling me close. Empty nest syndrome starting early, huh? He said affectionately. I leaned into his solid, familiar warmth, a warmth that now felt both like a shelter and a cage. Yeah, I whispered, watching the empty street. Something like that. Our story doesn't have a conventional happy ending. There was no grand affair, no explosive confrontation, no running away together into the sunset. Sometimes the greatest act of love isn't a passionate declaration, but a quiet, devastating surrender. I chose the love that built a home over the love that burns it down. I chose the man who trusted me over the boy who awakened a part of me I never knew was sleeping. I still think of him sometimes, when a certain song plays or when the morning sun hits the living room couch in a particular way. The memory is a bittersweet ache, a permanent, private scar. But when Mark comes home now, I meet him at the door with a kiss that is full of present tense love, a choice I reaffirm every single day. The waves outside continue their endless rhythm, a reminder that some lines, once crossed, can only lead to a shore of regret. And I have this regret